This is a true story about an amazing man who grew up in Savannah, Georgia, and started a car dealership back in the 1920s that is still selling cars to the people of Savannah in 2022. Practically 100 years ago, Julius KAMINSKY, whose parents had just recently immigrated from Poland, had an idea. And let's take a look at what he did. It's amazing. But first, I just want to say this. They also sell at Southern Motors Acura used cars. And here's a Plymouth Prowler that's for sale. And you can come on down and take a look at it. And they have a friendly sales lady there that would be glad to show you this car. If you're interested, just give Michaela Royal a phone call and she'll be definitely glad to help you out. So I guess the question would be, how could somebody be selling Acuras back in the 1920s? Well, of course, they weren't selling Acuras back then. But what Julius KAMINSKY did was he decided to start selling cars called Nashes. Let's dig into this a little bit. These are all Nash dealers in a big photo shoot. And there's Julius KAMINSKY. And here's Julius KAMINSKY. He's gotten a little bit older, and boy, was he successful. Check this out. Just one more look at him and you'll see, the change as he grew older. But let's get back to him in this other picture. It's hard to believe, but he was being given an award by the president and CEO of what is no longer Nash, but has now become American Motors. And that man standing on his right is George Romney, who happens to be Mitt Romney's father. George Romney, by the way, along with, being the CEO of American Motors, president, that all happened in 1954. He would later become the governor of Michigan and even make a bid for the White House. That's just a side note, but there they are. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if I said Mitt Romney, but his name is George Romney. That's Mitt Romney's dad. And this is when they made the deal in Hudson, and Nash. As you can see right there, Nash, Calvinate, and Hudson Motor Company combined, and they became American Motors Corporation. That happened on May 1st, 1954. So I'm assuming it's sometime after 1954 that George Romney went and visited Mr. Kaminsky. And if you were alive in 1954 and had gone down to Broughton and Havisham, you would have been maybe buying one of these cars from Mr. Kaminsky. Imagine that. If you ever get a chance, take a look at the history of Nash. And when Julius first started selling automobiles, which was in the 1920s, this is what he'd be selling. Cars like this. And what he did, it's amazing, is when he was 16 years old, he quit school to help support his family. And he got the idea, hey, I'm going to sell cars. And he made a deal with the folks down in Jacksonville, Florida, and he'd drive down there. They were the people that were bringing Nashes in down there into the port, I guess, of Jacksonville. And he'd drive down and buy one Nash and drive it back to Savannah and sell it. Upon selling it, he'd drive back down and buy another one. And then he'd just continued doing this until he finally got to the point where they gave him the rights to open up his own dealership, which happened right around 1929. Now, could you have not picked a better time to open up a dealership? 1929? Yeah. The Great Depression started. The Roaring '20s were over. And here he is, a young man, trying to get things really going. And he's got to face this uphill battle. Well, if you think about it, I guess things couldn't get much worse. And then you get what happens, World War II starts. And they start producing cars altogether in the United States because of the war effort. But he hung in there. And when the war ended in 1945, Nash was one of the first companies to get some cars out there in the last quarter of 1945, which I'm sure made Julius one happy person to get some new cars into that showroom. Believe it or not, these are Mr. Kaminsky's sons and grandsons. And yep, like I says, they're still in business today. And just a lot of history here. If you like automobile history, well, you're looking at it. It's unbelievable. Here he is in 1977. Again, another honor. Now it's no longer, we're calling it AMC. I mean, this man saw the automobile industry from its infancy right up to where companies like American Motors would go out of business, but he didn't. He just started selling Acuras and Hondas. This is a guy that never quit. He never quit. And he really did face a lot of, tough odds were against him. Now here's a nice picture of Southern Motors back in the day, as they say. This is a picture that was taken in 1948. I'd be able to love to go back in time and go down there and take a test drive. Have Mr. Kaminsky sitting in the car with me and telling me all about it. That'd be great. Now, the original dealership is, if you're ever in Savannah and you take the historic tour around there, it's on the corner of Havisham and Broughton, and the building is still there, but there's been some changes. Let's take a quick walk around the place, and you'll see what I'm talking about. 402 Broughton Street. This is the very back of the building. That's probably the door they used to bring the new cars in to the showroom back in the 1920s. Directly behind Southern Motors is what is known as the Dolly Parton House. So if you're down there, take a walk out back and you'll see this. They'll take you there on the tour. It's rather famous. This is amazing. Southern Motors, they no longer are selling cars there, and real soon, guess what? College took it. They took the building, and it's going to be the home of the Savannah Repertory Theater. So it's never going away, but I hope they leave the marquee up there, at least on the side of the building that says Southern Motors. Take a good look at the front of the old sales room, and you're going to see an ad here at the end of this that I think you'll enjoy a lot after, because you've seen this and then you get to watch the ad. So take a look, please.